The purpose of this video is for me to document the process of how I created this logo. Let me assure you that I'm not an expert on Adobe Illustrator for iPad, but if you watch this, you'll get an idea of how the process works. This is the Learn Adobe Illustrator on iPad amateur hour version. So the first thing you have to do for this project is create a circle. Fortunately, on the left-hand side, there's a little circle you can hit with your Apple Pen, and then you press that little blue button there, and you drag it out, and it creates a perfect circle. If you don't press the blue button, it'll be an oblong. Who knows what you're going to come up with. So now the next thing I have to do is get rid of all the colors. So that right there is called the fill. And I want that to be blank because we're going to change this in the future. But I do want the outline, which I forget what it's called right now, green, but it's the button down there at the bottom. You'll see why that's important in a second. Now what I'm going to do is create 3 of these circles. So now you see I've increased the stroke, that's what they call that, so you can see the pretty green circle. Now I'm going to go over here to the right side and begin the duplication process. Okay, so I've already hit the little duplication button, and now I'm going over here to the size, and I'm just slowly shrinking it until I get it the way I like it. Now I'm going to repeat the process. If you notice, I hit that little plus button. Then I'm going to go back up to the properties and shrink it again. So now I've got 3 concentric circles that are pretty close to each other. Now for my purposes, because these colors are going to change in the future, I'm going to make the middle stroke kind of a magenta just for me to be able to see it better. Now the next thing I'm going to do is convert these into an object, or you basically hit that one button and it joins them all together so that you can manipulate them and then change the colors. So now the next thing I'm going to do is cut the top half of the circle off. So if you notice, I went over there, I created a rectangle. Now I'm going to give it some color just so I can see what it looks like. It doesn't really matter what the color is because the rectangle is not long for this world. Right now, as you see over on the right, I've got the fill at white. I turn it a nice brown just because I see it. Now what I'm going to do is position it in the circle over the pieces I want to get rid of. Now in the final version, I've often rounded it out as well, but for purposes of demonstration. So now the next thing you've got to do, and this little arrow up here is the key to everything. You got to highlight everything. Then you go over to the Shape Builder tool. You select Shape Builder and you start clicking away all of the things you don't want. And if you notice, it's always going to miss or do something. It's kind of a pain, but if you just persevere, you can get through it. So now I've created a lopped off circle that I can use for the rest of the logo. The next step is I'm going to beautify the colors of the circles to make it more interesting and to give it a little more pop. The first thing I got to do is get it big enough so I can see it. Once again, you need to press the small circle on the left to ensure that the proportions stay the same. If you just grab and start dragging it, it'll distort it to all kinds of different angles, and you got to start all over again. So now I'm selecting the individual circle parts that I want to change. So once again, you highlight this specific circle, you go over to the color bar, and now you're going to do something called a gradient. And what a gradient allows you to do is transition between colors so that you get a really kind of cool visual effect. So you can see up on the left hand, I've clicked gradient, and then I picked the far left. That created the bar across the middle of the circles. Each point in the bar allows you to add a color for your transition. As you can see, I'm over on the left adjusting the color circle. And now if you look, you can see the transitions that I put in place. You're going magenta down to blue and then back up to magenta. Now I'm going to do this for the other 2 circles, but I'm going to use different color combinations so they don't exactly match. They're all going to be in the same family. Now what's really cool is if you want to, you can save these swatches. But at this point in time, I'm just creating different color combinations across the various circles. But the process is always the same. Select the circle, select the color, select gradient, take the left to right menu option, put a color in the middle, and set up your gradient. So here we go again. Once again, you see the 2 points. Now I just put the point in the middle, and I adjusted the color rings. Now, as you can see, this is way more interesting to me than just 3 solid colors, and it gives the eye something to work with. If you notice, the ring in the middle is sticking up a little bit, so I'm going to go through the process here of using the selection tool to drag it down, rotate it, and fit it back in shape. It's a pretty nice feature that you can adjust these things individual while you're working on it. However, we're about to come up to the most difficult and annoying part of the whole process, which is lettering. So the first thing you have to do is hit the type box, and then you get, your lorem ipsum stuff. And the next thing I need to do is get it in the typeface I want. In this case, I've clicked on futuristic, and there's one that I've selected, which is called scissor cut. And I'm going to go through here and highlight it. You'll see it in a second. That will automatically change the text to right. Now I want to get the colors right, which is you're always sitting here clicking and tapping, and eventually you figure it out. So now I'm up in the type properties menu, and I've deleted the text. So now I want to get the right color in place. So as you smooth through here, you'll see I go down to the bottom where it says fill. And now once again, I'm going to select my colors, and the fill will be what the body is, and then the stroke, which is magenta. So now I'm going to type it in, and you'll see I've got everything lined up, so now I'm ready to type. As you can see, it's coming in a bit small, so I'm going to have to go through a series of adjustments back at the property panel again. So if you see it pop up there, move it to where I want it to go using the selection tool. And now I've got to make the type bigger because it's obviously too small. So you go up to this top, you link them together. If you look, there's a little lock over on the right, and that allows you to move it around and center it a little bit better. Then you go down below that and click it there, and that'll get you the type and adjust it. So I'm going to leave it like that for right now, and if I have to adjust it later, I can come back. Now I need to put the type below and go through the same process. Once again, this is tedious to do this. At least this time I don't have to set the typeface, but I have to go in and readjust the colors. For some reason, it always defaults to fill and stroke, which you can see down on the bottom of the screen right now, to black and no stroke. So once again, you've got to pop up the color wheel, set your colors. You can either click the swatch or play around. Now, in this case, I want it to be just the opposite of the one above. And now I have to go through, delete it again, and retype it. But I moved it up there just because it's easier to see the keyboard. So now I'm going to type that in and get the bottom half of the logo ready. So once again, you select it. And here's an example of rogue tapping that you have to delete. If you're not careful, you'll end up with a whole bunch of little doodads you created that you're going to have to clean up later. So now it's a matter of just getting the typeface set to the right where I like it. But we're not going to do that until we bring in the logo head. Now, this was developed using Procreate and artificial intelligence, and I'll go over that in detail at another time. Sorry I didn't change the email stuff. So now I've centered the logo in there, and I've got a basic mock-up to go. This is not the final deal, but it is getting close, but this goes to show you what the actual process for putting one of these together looks like. This is the final logo, and I will develop a video to show you how